We all have things from our past we remember fondly, and sometimes don't even know why anymore. Could be a road trip you went on, could be a taste, a smell, a moment recorded only in a photo, something we remember vaguely but feel clearly. It could be a movie that as a kid you watched over and over on a VHS player, only to rewind and watch again. A song you couldn't get out of your head for months, a book or show, something that helped you escape reality when you came home from school and didn't feel like doing homework. Maybe it wasn't even one of your favorites, but there was something about how it made you feel in that moment that made it stay in your mind since. Maybe you connected with a character, to the point they became part of how you saw yourself back then. Maybe a few fun moments that stuck with you and shaped your sense of humor. It could have just been the aesthetics of it, or maybe you just saw cool monsters with Gatling guns for hands and nipple torpedoes and thought, hey, that's pretty cool. You don't really know why anymore, because what got stuck in your mind wasn't really a movie, song, book, or show. It was a moment, a snapshot of how you felt, who you were, that is now tied to a piece of media. I think many people who watched a lot of anime in the late 2000s will think back fondly on the 2008 adaptation of Spice and Wolf. It was never one of those mainstream shows you expect everyone to know, but it was a beloved cult classic among fans of fantasy and romance that carved its own niche in the community at that time. While most fantasy shows tend to lean towards action and adventure, which makes sense, Spice and Wolf is far more interested in showing us the, by comparison, more ordinary life of its main characters. And even though the action-adventure elements are still somewhat present, for the most part, the appeal of it is in watching the two main characters banter as they try to earn money as traveling merchants. The anime tells us the story of Kraft Lawrence, a young traveling merchant who wants to save enough to open up a store so he can settle down, and the events that follow his encounter with the wise wolf, Hollow. Hollow is a wolf deity, celebrated for blessing the harvest. However, as years went by and humans learned better farming methods and how to overcome bad weather, they no longer had the need to ask for blessings from deities, and so she has become no more than a folktale. Seeing Lawrence as her ticket out of the village, the two end up traveling together, with Hollow helping him out in return for him taking her back north to her original home of Yoitsu. With his intelligence and her cunning, they travel the countryside in search of opportunities to make money, and end up developing a deeper bond than either expected. What makes everything come together is Hollow and Lawrence having genuine chemistry, making every second they share the screen have you invested in their back and forth, and the unique cottagecore fantasy appeal created by the art and music definitely helps make it memorable. Add to that the strong dark line art and rough details that were commonplace at that time, and you have the formula for a cult classic. It's one of those you had to be there type of shows, and one I hold very dear as it brings me back to that time in my life. It ran for 2 seasons and an OVA, and it was assumed that we would never see another. And so, when a remake was announced, you can probably guess how excited fans were for it, myself included. But as it started coming closer, there's always some mixed feelings. What if this show isn't the same anymore? What if I'm not into it this time around? I wanted more of this and now I have it, and do I even want to watch this? I used to love this show, it was a big part of my childhood, but is it even good anymore? What if it ruins the fondness I have for the franchise? It's good. It's great even. It's obviously not the same, but this is what a remake done right is. First thing I have to say is, this is not 2008 Spice and Wolf. One of the things I loved about that version was the art style, which is no longer there. But it's not like it has to be. The best thing a remake can do is not let its artistic direction be guided by the first adaptation. Just because the first time around something was adapted a certain way, doesn't mean that everything should be the same on a remake. The new studio and crew behind it took the source material and adapted it from the start with their own flavor. Now, the show in general does lose a few of the things I liked about its darker aesthetic and rougher feel. The characters look a bit more youthful and rounded this time around, but I'm glad they kept the same voice cast for the most part though. It makes it easier as a fan to get used to the new look and feel of the show if the voices stay the same. That's when it hit me. Nothing else really is the same now. is it? I'm loving this adaptation, but it's not scratching that itch. It's not more of what I liked, or a return to something I loved. This is a new experience. I love the way the original used lighting and composition to set the mood. I felt a bit more connected to Hollow's loneliness early on due to how she was introduced. Alone, hidden from the village. The new Spice and Wolf still tells us how the characters feel, but the original adaptation really showed it. The colors are now much more pastel, which does fit the original novel art better, but light novel art is also a smaller part of how their story is told than anime art. Also, 2008 didn't have CGI and Chloe's much more interesting a character than Yare, and I've realized I'm just looking for reasons to not like it at this point. Over the years, we tend to create an idea of what a show was, which isn't really based on what it actually was, but on how it made us feel at that point in time, or how we felt about ourselves. There were probably a few good, honest critiques in what I said, but they don't really carry much weight when they're coming from a place of nostalgia. I like the old art style for its detail and general aesthetic, but the new one does look smoother in motion and allows the team to add more movement to a lot of moments where there were only stills or panning shots before. The animation of the original in general was far less consistent, and the style would be a bit dated by today's standards. The lighting and composition that was present in the original was great at setting the mood, but sometimes it could also be a bit much. There are certain scenes that look too tense for what's supposed to be a cute moment. I do think that the original conveyed negative emotions better, but the new adaptation is great at giving the cozy feel of the characters learning to enjoy each other's company, and fits a lot of the cute moments better. And while Hollow wasn't introduced by herself, longing for something like in the original, instead we get to see that she eventually looks back fondly upon the story we're about to be told. That she found the happiness she's looking for and is sharing her past with who we can only assume to be her daughter. And I love this new introduction scene a lot too. No, it's not the same Spice and Wolf that I feel so nostalgic for, but that doesn't make it any worse. And it doesn't make it any better either, it just makes it its own thing. Sometimes we get so lost in what we want something to be that we forget to enjoy it for what it is. And that's what a remake should be, no? A retelling of a story you love, painted through the brush of a different team of artists. Studio Passione took on this beloved cult classic and gave it their take. And it's a damn good take. I haven't enjoyed a romance anime this much in a long time. The snappy dialogue is there, the growing bond between Hollow and Lawrence is there, the fun commerce plots and trade deals are there, the hard-hitting moments still hit hard. And as much as a part of me will always reminisce on my middle school days, sitting in front of an old computer with a slow internet connection, watching a poorly subtitled, low-resolution anime on a shady website, as much as that adaptation makes me think back on who I used to be, I can still learn to enjoy something new for what it is, to rid myself of expectations for what it should have been, and allow myself to create a new experience, with a new adaptation, that one day I will look upon with a feeling of nostalgia.